The U.S. and China have extended a truce in their trade war until mid-November. At about the same time that President Trump was signing an executive order postponing increased U.S. import levies, Beijing also announced the extension of its own tariff pause. The 90-day extension allows more time for Chinese and American negotiators to reach a trade deal. Here's more on the efforts to strike such a deal.
The trade war between China and the US has triggered fear and uncertainty across the globe. Donald Trump started hiking tariffs on Chinese goods shortly after his return to the White House, fulfilling a campaign promise. Tensions between the world's two biggest economies escalated quickly. In April, Washington introduced a staggering 145% tariffs on Chinese imports. Beijing countered with a 125% rate. In May, the US scaled back its rate to 30%, while China cut its rate to 10%. Since he unleashed his volley of tariffs, Trump has narrowed the US trade deficit with the rest of the world and taken in tens of billions of dollars in revenues. He has struck 8 framework tariff agreements with the EU, Japan, Britain, South Korea, Vietnam, Indonesia, Pakistan and the Philippines. But China is proving difficult to unlock.
If the United States insists on waging a tariff war or trade war, China will fight to the end.
China exports 3 times as much to the United States as it imports. The US market is crucial, but China is succeeding in finding other markets. Exports rose a higher than expected 7.2% in July. China's exports to the EU, its main alternative to the American market, grew more than 9%. While its exports to the US fell 22% last month, compared to a year earlier. Shipments to Southeast Asia rose 17% over the same period. The US has leverage as it manufactures high-tech AI chips that China needs. But Beijing also has leverage with its dominance in critical minerals.
One of the reasons that the Americans basically kind of balked a little bit at the 145% tariffs that were announced earlier this year is because of the Chinese decision to counter America's aggression, as they saw it in trade, by restricting or withholding shipments of rare earths.
Many believe both sides are kicking the can down the road until Trump meets Chinese President Xi Jinping in person, probably later this year. For both leaders, the political capital of shaking hands on a successful trade deal is worth more than the economic cost.
And DW's Clifford Coonan, who filed that report, joins us now in the studio. Clifford, China and the U.S. are not exactly friends. Why is it so important, then, that the two of them reach some sort of deal and shake hands?
I think here you have to strip out the political from the economic. And basically, we're dealing with Donald Trump here, who likes other powerful men. It's one of the reasons that he feels he has this rapport with Putin, even if things are strained right now. And he's always said that he likes Xi Jinping, and he always will, but he's found him a tough negotiator. So against that backdrop, you see him sort of trying to... The handshake is something that he loves. He loves handshakes, and he loves the political theatre. And the two most powerful countries in the world, the two biggest economies in the world, if they can find a meeting and it's personified by a Trump-Xi handshake, it's obviously very important for him.
The U.S. has slapped what it calls reciprocal tariffs on many of its allies, its closest trading partners. Why is China, of all countries, getting a reprieve?
Because China is so important. I think what you have to, another thing to do here that it's interesting to look at is to see what Scott Bessent is saying, who's the Treasury Secretary who's been leading the negotiations on China. He recognizes that China is very important. He's also said in an interview during the week, he was saying that China isn't a market economy, which means that it makes it very difficult to deal with because it's looking for different things from these. It's looking for more political capital again. So, and Scott Bessent has also said that these tariffs will be removed. It's about getting balance in removing imbalances from global trade. So, I think what they will be looking for is to try and get sort of concessions on a lot of key issues.
So, what are the key sticking points in the U.S.-China trading relationship right now?
Well, we have TikTok. One of the things is he wants that Trump is very keen on is that TikTok be sold to a US company from its Chinese owner, ByteDance, which is something the Chinese are very much against. So I think we might see something on that. People are talking about it, although everything seems to be taking longer than expected because the Chinese seem to be very good at playing the long game and the Americans aren't. The other thing is fentanyl, that they want something done about the supply of fentanyl to the US market. And then the more broad issues about trade, about imbalances in trade, about how US businesses don't have the same level playing fields that Chinese firms have there.
So what do you expect from these talks? I mean, they've got 90 days to kind of work things out. What do you see them focusing on? How will this proceed?
I think what you're going to see is a broadening of the whole trade talks. I think it's going to start including a lot more than just the rare earths, TikTok, fentanyl. I think it's going to start bringing in political elements. It's going to, in some ways, they're going to use it as a basis, I think, to almost recalibrate the relationship between the US and China. I think Trump, as I've said, he loves the optics of a deal with China, even if there's a lot of sticking points there. So I think they're going to try and broaden it and find areas where they can agree on things so that they can present this big fait accompli. I mean, Trump has declared a trade war on the rest of the world, and this is the biggest battle in that trade war.
Clifford, thank you very much. DW's Clifford Coonan.